Today we're going to the max level in World of Warcraft, but we're removing the core mechanics and talents, which means several abilities you typically get will not be accessible as we try to push from level 1 to 70. But I didn't want to just leave it at that, so I added a time limit. If we can't complete this challenge in under 24 hours, then I officially fail. No dungeons, no friends, not that I have any, and no boosters. To begin, we're going to put a monk off the coast of an island because I hate myself. We'll call him talentless because that reflects brilliantly on how my runs are perceived by the classic WoW community, and we enter World of Warcraft for the first time. Now, the beginning is standard, speedrun your way to level 10 to get that ability to choose your storyline. In fact, the only notable thing was my first death at level 8 due to some random mechanical error from the Burning Crusade being such a weird expansion in WoW's history. Aside from that though, the game from 1 to 10 is completed in only about 42 minutes. Now, while talents are off the table, specializations aren't, so I'm taking this challenge in the hardcore mode of Mistweaver Monks because mana pools are more straightforward to balance than the standard energy bars, and the abilities I have at my disposal will still be influential in this spec. This run might be partially possible because of the toolkit Mistweavers get at level 10. For offensive abilities, we have Tiger's Palm, Blackout's Kick, and Crackling Jade Lightning as supplements to our central ability, Spinning Train Kick, a strong spammable AoE attack which will help us speed through some of the more challenging mobs. We also get Soothing Mist, Vivify, and Expel Harm as healing spells to help bring us from the brink if things get tricky. We get one charge of Roll and Leg Sweep for some stun and mobility runs if things become too tight to stand and wait for, and as a minor benefit, we get Detox, a dispel for magic effects only. But one of the significant pieces of this puzzle is an ability so powerful that I was surprised to see it on a level 10 toolkit. The move, Touch of Death. Todd is a 3-minute cooldown that instantly kills an enemy so long as they have less HP than you do, so as you can imagine, boss fights will be lots of fun. Today's storyline will be Legion because of a constantly upgrading weapon and followers that you can pick to do some powerful work while out on the field. So with our sights set on the demonic expansion, we acquire a powerful weapon, took it back to Azuna, questioned the morality of eating dragons, and helped Prince Verandus overcome the Night Elf missile crisis all over again. Though based on the population of the elves in Goldshire, I don't think the entire situation has solved itself, but what do I know? Most of the standard beginning scaling makes it to where even if you're a blindfolded monkey, you could probably get to the midpoint with little challenge to speak of. In fact, it was such a drag, I decided to go ahead and raise the stakes and turn on war mode for this challenge as well. Anyone looking to take on a talented Mistweaver, beware, because I'm ready for you. But that didn't happen here, at least not yet. So we wrapped up Azuna at level 25 with a time of 3 hours and 40 minutes. But hold on. A real zone like Val'sharah gave me something that I couldn't believe was a challenge for me. And when you see what I mean, you'll understand why this was the bane of my existence. Here I was, running to get to the next spot on my map. Adrenaline pumping for the previous levels to come and go with minimal effort on my part, when suddenly it dawned on me. At the speed I was going, there was no way I would be able to complete this challenge in time, so I needed not to only run, but fly. And in my momentum to move fast, I rolled off the side of a cliff, dramatically falling and hoping my flying squirrel kicks would come into play, only to realize that I didn't spec as a Pandaren, nor did I really want to. So I plopped myself onto the ground and took myself out. Yep, that was something. But I swear to all of you, when we do Can You Beat World of Warcraft If You Defy Gravity, we'll see the truth in the flying island's god behavior. But yeah, if you couldn't tell, Val'sharah is kind of like Azuna in difficulty. For quick story's sake, we kill off the second most fetishized dragon in history, help the discount grenade solve their undead crisis, and beat off the nightmare until we finally hit the ripe old age of level 33 with a time of 5 hours and 33 minutes. Have you taken notes yet? Because all these are going to be on the exam at the end of the video. Rocky Pastures, High Mountain, a place where there are some of the most utterly ridiculous tasks. You'll make the most of your time here. Lots of things are at stake to complete this challenge, and you're about to find out where the beef is. High Mountain, a land completely fallen hard times. Our task is fierce. We need to assemble the forces of the mighty landscape if we hope to stand in defiance of the Legion threat. Row with the River Mains, soar with the Skyhawks, and dig with the Drogbar. All while stopping the nefarious blood totems from swearing their allegiance and giving everything for great power. High Mountain is... I mean, it's also kind of simple. Look guys, I really am trying to make it seem like there's a challenge here, and there is, don't get me wrong. Stuff is starting to get a little more complex, but honestly the toolkit we have is such a powerhouse of the cell that the mitochondria have no idea what to do with our energy. I didn't die once at this location because despite being minimalized to a grand total of 11 abilities, we're still rolling through most of the things up to this point. Even if they did prove a challenge, we have Todd in the background helping us game our way into bed. I mean, kill off the mobs. I don't even know why I said that. So with that, we can complete High Mountain at around level 43 and a time of 7 hours and 52 minutes, just under 1/3 of our time limit. Stormheim, Yinga Hinga Durgan, the Vragul's bread and butter starting point for the Legion. Where's Leif Erikson when you need him for this sort of spot? He's somewhere. Certainly. Probably. Who knows? Now you're probably thinking I'm going to do what I've done with the past 3 domes and say there's no challenge here. We rock and roll out and head straight to Dragonflight. And that's almost true, but there is something to note with challenges like these. Case in point, my next death. At level 48, I took on several wolves and realized that at this point, my AoE capabilities had drastically dropped since no empowerments were helping my bare bones, albeit powerful toolkit anymore. And since my primary ability to get through most of the challenge up to this point has been spinning crane kick, seeing it fall to a low powered state meant my damage had also taken quite a hit. Stuff that I found trivial prior to Stormhind had been amplified because scaling was catching on to my antics. Not enough to completely stop me in my tracks, mind you, but enough to foreshadow some difficulty in the future. I did die at level 51 and 54 respectively for reasons of overcockiness and lack of damage, but Stormheim and its chase for the Aegis, as well as stopping Got Bridal Skovalda and Sylvia, was able to be completed after some prolonged, drawn-out fights. Stormheim eventually fell to talentless hands after 57 levels and a time of 10 hours and 49 minutes. So it should come as no surprise that we get from 57 to 60 by going through the Oris Gauntlet and mostly building our garrison. Going into the final stretch, our time is currently at 11 hours and 24 minutes. Now with only 12 hours left, we have 10 of the most challenging levels to get through before the expiration date of 24 hours. The previously mentioned problems are really beginning to take their toll on our character with minimal damage, low healing, and now with only leg sweep as our single interrupt ability, we're about to hit some of the real rocky terrains. No, not High Mountain, the Linking Shores. The first death came at level 60 from a conga line I did not want to participate in. As it turns out, you can't say no to dragons if they invite you to dance with them. The second death is where war mode finally kicks in as I get door slammed by the random elf looking for delicious elf giblets. Spoilers, I did not bring them from Silver Moon, I thought that would be cheating. The final death of level 60 came from the water tribe. As it turns out, hunters and gatherers can put down a disco ball elf from the sea if their fins get up to it. Surprisingly though, I still don't suffer too badly at this level, but the scaling is starting to become noticeable. We get to level 61 at a time of 12 hours and 10 minutes. You'll notice the time frames really start to jump up here with levels as well, as gone are the days of multiple levels in 1 hour, which made me genuinely wonder if this would be the run or if I am destined to fail. Level 61 is next in the chopping block, and surprisingly we get only 2 deaths at this junction. The first came from a debate table where the fellas started supporting Flamin' Hot Cheetos while I was doing a jag of Doritos. Cheetos won, by the way. The second death was a big eye-opener in realizing that rare mobs were becoming impossible to kill once again, just like in the previous challenge. My damage is so low that even competing with one of the mobs is a problem, and I can't solve it with some sort of gimmick, so I go ahead and KO a second time. Still, we remain on track, getting level 62 at 13 hours and 1 minute. Moving on to the last main parts of the wedding sponge, we can tally up some more hiccups for the run. The first came from more Flaming Hot Cheetos bringing their cheese puff friends to the equation. Can't say I'm going back to that brand anytime soon. Next, I seem to have stumbled on a birthday bash where I took the leading present of an egg from the birthday boy. He and his friends proceeded to peg me with stones, tar, and the tears of their unborn ovule. Afterwards, I went scouting for the corpse of Who Needs Stags, only to find the exact Proto-Drake that killed him. Needless to say, Talentless was next on the chopping block against the Proto-Drake menace. Thankfully, I didn't get stuck here this time, but instead, I flew right into the arms of an overzealous elf who proceeded to show me his arrow collection while tipping his fedora at me. Despite the rough spots and the most deaths on the count so far, we don't get knocked off and continue onwards to level 63 with a time of 13 hours and 55 minutes. This next push marked our pursuit to get as much experience as possible before moving on to the Emerita Plains. But I missed it so much that I decided to do some cliffsides to represent my frustration at not being in a zone full of dragons that would want to eat me. You want to know how much I actually missed it? I did it twice in the same circumstances, thinking that somehow I'd be smarter the second time around. And then, I hit a wall. Mind you, it wasn't on the main quest, but the final side quest that has you kill some random dude in the back corner of Water Shrine knows where, and this guy, even with talents, seems like he would be a difficult boss battle. He killed Build me twice, but unlike my armor and weapons run, I decided not to keep bouncing off the wall and instead went somewhere else to finish. After all, it'd be pointless to cave on one mob for a side quest. Once done headbanging against the first zone, I get to level 64 at 14 hours and 48 minutes. 6 more levels to go, and 64 slopes down in some difficulty judging by the kill count. In another fashion to my previous challenge, the shamans of decided that their lunch should be served early. This happens again a little bit later, surrounded and eaten by the local Selkath. I didn't know I was playing Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic today, but here we are. I guess there's a reason Manon's underwater levels should be avoided, as this happens a third time before the deaths stop coming here and we proceed onto the first part of the Overwatch Plains in peace. We're on to level 65 and 16 hours marked on the list, and, well, I think it's time we go ahead and start discussing a problem that's creeping out. Slowly, the recordings have been getting more and more prolonged, and this one is our first mark of over an hour. And while 5 levels seems doable, the lack of damage is really starting to rack up. And if I get enough recordings like this where I can't sub an hour, then there's a pretty harsh possibility that I won't make the cut. I'm starting to worry now that maybe we'll cut a little closer than I initially thought, especially when you realize that the Armor and Weapons Challenge took 40 hours to complete because 20 hours was spent in Dragonflight. We can't afford to have that happen here. Crunch time is against us, and the final 5 is awaiting. I'm not sure if we're going to make it out on top this time. But it's worth a try as we start at level 65 with a bang, as a thunderstorm chases me around like Dorothy until I'm off seeing the wonderful Wizard of Oz. I should have known that the Wicked Witch of the West wouldn't be so keen, as she sends her next trick to tangle with me and kick me out of my dream sequence. But blunders like this will take more time than I can afford. Still though, the barriers are minimal, but the time is still rising as we hit level 66. Nerves are beginning to form. Next on our list are the final storylines of the oversighted Pluto. The thunder rolls on our challenge, crashing us into the depths down below for another kill. And also, we have an overzealous pull that I didn't really ask for, but received when my helping hand decided that I was more than stable enough to take on large packs, even though at this point, one-on-one battles were beginning to become a struggle. The setbacks are putting us in a bind here, and the position of timing with running out of steam is setting me on edge. Sadly, level 67 is not going to help us here. Azuru's Band opening quest can be challenging to compete against, and no exception is made here as the Crystal people are too busy showing me their collection to realize that I have a challenge to finish. And Gnolls just straight up don't care. They're too busy being as close to puntable in the face as a Volpera can be if you trip over one by accident. The numbers are adding up for another level, but with us coming closer to the wire, I am trying desperately to see if there's any substantial impact on our time. But then, this happens. At level 68, we're greeted with a flawless level. No deaths, no stupid mistakes, no dumb decisions that cost me my life by the Cheeto Dust people. Just a pure sweep to try and wrap up the last of the zone before things get too rough. And what do I get for being flawless at this level? Well, it turns out deaths aren't as much of a problem as I thought. Despite how careful I was, this level still wasn't quite the numbers game that I wanted it to be. And so, here we are. Level 69. Most of my runs are the longest here, and at the final level, you probably shouldn't be surprised to know that this one was no exception. Since the mobs are at their most challenging state, it's natural we'd be near the end of our ropes. Surprisingly, however, our kill counts don't go very high. The first to the last, we have one more encounter with the Cheeto Dust enthusiast. But it wasn't just them. Murlocs apparently now have the total capacity to straight into your heart, causing such a lovely sound to make an implosion on your eardrums. But while Fire had its idea of stopping us, the Frost and any elemental that could listen was entirely adverse to the talentless hack making his way to the land's top peak. Yet we stood tall, marching ourselves under the timelines of the past, fighting fire, ice, and murlocs all bundled into one gigantic and blasting him out of the sky to obtain that glorious final level of 70. But even though we hit the level, did the time beat us? Well, friends, despite our best efforts, I must say that we managed to hit level 70 in 22 hours and 11 minutes, almost 2 hours before the final bell. Unfortunately, however, it looks like 95% of you can't do this in under 24 hours. Rest in peace.